What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video, since the Great League has returned, I'm going to be continuing the series where we take a look at some of the best Pokemon from each region that for whatever reason, nobody else is using. And in this video, we're going to be looking at the Kalos region. Now, I'll be honest, this region was quite tough because there's quite a lot of fringe meta picks that I think are certainly underrated, but you do see them from time to time. So picking 3 Pokemon that I've personally not seen at all this season, while still trying to pick 3 good Pokemon, was actually quite tough. But in the lead, since a few people requested it, I'm actually running a level 50 Fletchinder. Now, unlike Talonflame, this Pokemon doesn't have access to Incinerate, but it does have both Ember and Peck, 2 very good fast moves. I've opted for Ember purely for the better charge move pacing. Now, on the save switch, I'm running Barbaracle. This Pokemon has a very awkward typing, although its Mega Evolution is apparently a Rock and Fighting type, which is going to be very cool. But anyways, it also has some of the best and most versatile coverage in the game, with a choice of either Fury Cutter or Mud Slap as the fast moves, and then Cross Chop, Razor Shell, Grass Knot, Stone Edge, and Skull Bash for those charge moves. I've opted for Fury Cutter, Cross Chop, and Grass Knot, which means it will actually struggle to beat the things that it should be beating. However, it can really fight back against some of its hardest counters, like Cradily and Gastrodon. Now, as for the final Pokemon, and probably quite surprisingly, I've gone with Aegislash. This Pokemon got buffed this season with Gyro Ball now costing 50 energy, which means this Pokemon can finally store back-to-back charge attacks, which is huge given how its form change mechanic works in battle. For those of you that don't know, it begins the battle in shield form, and it will switch to blade form after using a charge attack, and then it will switch back to shield form if you use a shield in battle. Now, I'm going to be honest, I didn't realize it switched back after using a shield until like halfway through these battles because I'm stupid and I just didn't look into this Pokemon at all. It's the first time I'm using it, so I do make some questionable plays here and there, but either way, let's just get into the question of the day. Which Pokemon from the Galar region would you like to see me use in the next video of this series? I've tried a few Pokemon already, and so far, unfortunately, nothing has really worked out for me, so let me know in the comment section down below. And with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Let's go into the first battle, leading Fletchinder into Clodsire. So not the best matchup for me, especially if they're on Stone Edge. Stone Edge is just going to one-shot me here. We're going to go for Fly, and after seeing how much damage we deal with this Fly, we probably should have gone for Flame Charge to boost up my attack stat because I would still outpace them. The opponent goes for a Sludge Bomb there, so very unlikely to be running Sludge Bomb and Stone Edge, which does mean I can no-shield the next charge move. However, since I didn't go for Flame Charge, Second Fly doesn't even put them into farm down range. It's quite awkward for me. We are now going to look to overfarm. We're going to swap Cash the next Sludge Bomb onto my Barbaracle. The opponent's Sludge Bomb is resisted there. They're going to swap into a Shadow Lapras, a Pokemon that I'm definitely fine with seeing here. We can go straight for Cross Chop. Cross Chop going to be shielded by that Shadow Lapras. And at this point, I'm actually going to use my final shield. Aegislash is very bulky, so don't really need to save shields for it. Now I'm going to full send a Grass Knot, and the opponent doesn't respect it. It gets the KO. However, since I've revealed both charge moves, they come in confidently into their Shadow Jumpluff, a Pokemon that would now resist the charge moves on Barbaracle. But I swap back into Fletchinder. The opponent is going to look to overfarm, but this is fine with me. Aegislash gets the KO, but now I can come back in with my Aegislash. I'm going to completely wall this Pokemon, and the opponent needs to swap out of this matchup really, as if they bank some energy here, well, if they allow me to overfarm, we can just go straight for a Gyro Ball after farming up to 100 energy. So Gyro Ball definitely gonna get the KO here. I will change form, so what I'm actually now gonna do, since I will be very attack weighted, I'm gonna swap back into Barbaracle. Of course, catching the acrobatics there, it gets the KO, and now again, we just completely wall this Pokemon. I'm not entirely sure if a Shadow Ball will KO, so playing it safe, going for back-to-back Gyro Balls. First one is gonna do huge damage when it does eventually land. That is the only annoying thing about this Pokemon. That form change just takes so long, like it's just unnecessarily long. But anyways, back-to-back charge moves there, of course, winning CMP the second time around in the Blade form, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent there into the next battle. Really good lead for me. The opponent's going to Safe Swap into Shadow Drapion. Now, unfortunately, I don't have an amazing answer to Shadow Drapion. Of course, if I was on Mud Slap, this would be a really nice matchup for me. Still a decent matchup here, and they do bait with an Aqua Tail, which means they will need to land a Crunch to get the KO. However, the opponent is going to look to overfarm. I believe they're at back-to-back Aqua Tails here, so if they do throw straight away, I can actually let this next move go through. So this one, gonna no shield as they fire off the Aqua Tail. Unfortunately, they might be able to Poison Sting farm me down, so I go for Cross Chop here. Cross Chop grabs that final shield. I swap back into Fletchinder, realizing that Aegislash is still gonna be absolutely fine up against that Shadow Scizor. And that final Pokemon is Cradily. Now, Aegislash just completely shuts down this Pokemon. It is a complete joke, and that was probably the most satisfying thing about using this Pokemon here. Don't need to bother shielding. Of course, our Rock Team easily one-shots me, but now we can just come in. We can look to overfarm massively in this matchup. Bullet Seeds, they're resisted, not doing much damage. They can go ahead, they can debuff me all they want. It doesn't really make a difference. Rock Team does honestly no damage at all. I might be debuffed here, but this is a Shadow Scizor we're talking about. So we go for Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball, of course, after we form change, will be enough damage to easily get the one shot there. And now we can go straight for Gyro Ball. And of course, Gyro Ball, again, even though we have been debuffed, it's super effective. It gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent there. Into the next battle, I see Shadow Kanto Marowak in the lead. So, this is why I've opted for Fletchinder. It's obviously not the best up against Mud Slappers because typically Gastrodon Marowak, they do have really good coverage for a Flyer and Flying type Pokemon in either Rock Slide or Water Pulse. But I do at least resist the Mud Slaps, which is kind of necessary given my backline. Now, here, going to go for a second Fly. Once again, if I went for Flame Charge there, I could have put them into farm down range or got the KO with that Fly, but now instead I swap, I catch a Rock Slide onto Barbaracle. We get very low there, but let's see what they want to do. They're going to come in with a Shadow Fortress. I'm going to go straight for Cross Chop here. Cross Chop, oh sorry, a regular Fortress, not the Shadow version. Cross Chop doesn't really do too much damage there. I'm going to increase my brightness because I walked into a different room, which was a lot lighter. But anyways, their final Pokemon going to be Bastiodon. And at this point, of course, we come in with the Aegislash. Of course, I'm going to no-shield the first charge move here because I have not form changed just yet. Gonna tank the flamethrower to the face very comfortably as well. You see, I'm also not even running XL Aegislash. I do not have the XL candies to build this Pokemon properly, so I just powered up a Lucky. And actually, I didn't even have the rare candies to build this Pokemon. That is why I went for the Alola version of the series first, and now I've gone back to Kalos because I literally just could not build this Pokemon. But anyways, you can see, we do swap back to the shield form. I didn't realize this at the time, but either way, we farm up to 100 energy here. And Shadow Ball is going to deal big damage. We can reach yet another Shadow Ball before they fully farm me down. And now we just have to swap back into Fletchinder. Should be able to outpace them here. A bit of lag there, which is quite frustrating. Honestly, I thought maybe I was about to lose this game as they'd reach a Rock Tomb, but no, Flame Charge gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent there. Into the next battle, we're going to see a Dusclops in the lead. So, this is an okay matchup for me. Not the best for me, but I'm going to no-shield the first charge as the opponent is just going to go straight for a Shadow Punch. That's fine with me. I can tank a second Shadow Punch. However, this is sort of an ABB-style team where I'm looking to bait out any potential Mud Slappers. So, I will swap. I will catch the next move onto Barbaracle. The opponent's now going to come in with a Dunsparce, so it's actually fine with me. I throw on CMP here, which is quite risky. I don't think I intentionally did that. I just always mess up against the rollout users because the animation is like one turn behind what it should be. But either way, this time around, I believe I will be intentionally throwing on CMP. Cross Chop coming through here. Cross Chop is going to grab a shield from the opponent. At this point, I'm actually going to double shield. The opponent swaps back into Dusclops. I'm going to bank at least a Cross Chop and swap back into Fletchinder. We go for Fly. Fly gets them very low here, and the opponent will be forced to throw. And of course, as well, Shadow Punch doesn't quite take me out there. The opponent forced to throw another charge move. At this point, of course, Shadow Punch gets the KO. I'll put them at 1 HP, I believe, so we can come in with the Aegislash here, go for the Psycho Cut farm down, but they have a Clodsire in the back. This is quite tricky for me, but in shield form, I am very bulky, so of course, I'm just going to wait for them to throw a charge move. Then I should be going for Gyro Ball straight away because Poison Stings, even though I will be in the Blade form, are triple resisted up against the Ghost and Steel typing. So they're dealing no fast move pressure whatsoever. Here we can reach a Gyro Ball just barely. We also charge to those charge moves slightly faster in the Blade form. I then swap back into Barbaracle, able to catch an Earthquake. Earthquake gets the KO there. Was that the right play though? Because now, unfortunately, I don't quite reach another charge move. And unfortunately, Earthquake will get the KO this time, and I do end up losing that game. So, GG's to opponent there into next battle, and by the way, if I actually just stayed in, let them KO me with the Earthquake, maybe Barbarical could have swept that game. But anyways, into next battle, gonna see a Mandibuzz in the lead. So this time, we've learned our lesson, gonna go for Flame Charge, which doesn't really deal that much damage, but then a boosted Fly is just gonna do so much more. The opponent goes for a foul play there, fine with me. Now gonna look to throw a Fly just before they do reach that next foul play. Fly, gonna be shielded actually by the opponent. We swap into Barbarical, and we bait out a Swampert. Do they know about the Grass Knot coverage? Grass Knot, gonna one-shot them there. They did not respect the damage. And now, of course, we can no-shield this foul play. Not gonna deal too much damage here. We can now look to overfarm. Unfortunately, I don't think Cross Chop will quite KO from this range, so no point throwing just yet. Instead, I'm gonna look to shield the next foul play, then farm up to very close to 100 energy and fire off another Cross Chop. Cross Chop is gonna get the KO this time around. They're gonna have Galarian Weezing in the back, which honestly, not ideal for Barbarical as they completely wall the energy, but we chip there. We can now swap into Fletchinder, and I'm actually able to win CMP as well. Fly is going to grab the final shield, and now with all shields down, Aegislash is going to have a field day here. Even if they're running Overheat, I believe I can tank this pretty comfortably and reach a Gyro Ball, so I'm actually not going to bother shielding the first. The opponent goes for a Play Rough, which does very little damage, and now, of course, Gyro Ball, super effective into the Fairy typing, will be enough damage here to get the KO eventually up against that Weezing, and I'm able to take that game. I actually took a screenshot there because I think I'm going to use it for the thumbnail, because you actually can't take any AR photos of the Aegislash in its blade form, which is quite kind of frustrating. But anyways, GG to that trainer into next battle. And yeah, honestly, didn't really think about electric type Pokemon when I was building this team, but stuff like, even Stunfisk, stuff like the Dedenne, they were very problematic for me. But we're going to stay in with the Fletchinder. I'm going to use one shield, hoping maybe I can grab a shield back from the opponent with a Flame Charge. We are already boosted, so this will do decent damage if they no shield, and they actually do no shield. They then swap at the same time as me. They swap into a Fearow. We can go for Cross Chop here. Cross Chop is going to be shielded by the opponent. I should live a drill run. It's not going to be super comfortable, and they will now be able to fully farm me down, but I can reach yet another Cross Chop. I'm hoping, honestly, this grabs the final shield, but the opponent does let that move go through, and honestly, this is the worst part about Aegislash. You just cannot farm Pokemon down. Of course, Psycho Cuts in this form here, they only deal 1 damage, so you basically, unless a Pokemon is basically at, like, 5 HP, you're not farming anything down, so I'm forced to throw, even though we're in a pretty good matchup here. Of course, Gyro Ball will be enough damage to get the KO. Also, that switching into the blade form is going to quite annoy me for the commentary of these battles. But anyways, we fire off another Gyro Ball here, and then going to look to swap back into Fletchinder, looking to catch a charge move. Doesn't work out for me. The opponent gets the full farm down, coming out with the Mud Bomb loaded. And of course, Mud Bomb takes us out from that range. And unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's to opponent there into next battle. I'm going to see Altaria in the lead, so not really a great matchup for the Fletchinder, but I will fire off a Fly. I'm going to go for one more Ember, then try and catch a Sky Attack onto my Barbarical. Unfortunately, it does not work out for me, but they swap into Empoleon. Empoleon, a Pokemon that maybe I can flip this matchup against, as we do have Cross Chop. Cross Chop grabs a shield there, and I can reach a second Cross Chop. Cross Chop does decent damage. I don't think I can fully Fury Cutter farm them down without double shielding. I personally don't want a double shield here, so I will let that move go through. And at this point, we're going to come in with the Fletchinder. I am going to go for a one shield fully farm down here, but the opponent very likely swaps back into their Altaria, and they do exactly that. I'm going to no shield this. Sky Attack does decent damage there. I'm going to fire off a Fly. Fly is going to do decent damage in return, but again, it doesn't really put them into farm down range, and I'm gonna no shield the first move. Flamethrower does decent super effective damage there. I will have to shield the next one because I don't know what they've got in the back. It's probably a Mud Slapper anyway, so I've probably already lost this game. And there it is. It's gonna be a Kanto Marowak, and it's not even the Shadow. If this was a Shadow, potentially Gyro Ball would be enough damage to get the one shot here, but the opponent is gonna shield. We swap back into Fletchinder, and we do force them to throw. However, unfortunately, I believe they are one away from back-to-back Bone Clubs, meaning they will outpace me to the next charge move. And of course, Bone Club, super effective. Well, actually, never mind, it doesn't quite get the KO there, but it does put me into one Mud Slap farm down range, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's to opponent there into next battle, and the awkward leads continue. We're going to say swap into our Barbarical, and the opponent comes in with a Shadow Annihilate. Now, we do have Grass Knot for coverage. If we had Cross Chop and Stone Edge, that would be an absolute nightmare, but we've actually put them into Ember farm down range. And also, the opponent only going to reach a single charge move, so Rage Fist going to boost up their attack stat. But that's fine, I can tank it, so I'm going to no shield this, go for the Ember farm down. I should now be able to outpace this for Alligator to that first charge move. So I do overfarm just slightly here. We fire off the Fly, but Fly not going to deal that much damage, and again, there's just no way for me to fast move farm them down here, so I need to stay in this matchup. We overfarm, but I actually lose CMP. I didn't realize this, but Fletchinder going to be losing CMP up against for Alligator, at least with the Ivy spread that I've got. We go for Fly, but they no shield. I go for a slight undercharge there, looking to go for a full farm down. Don't really know why I did that, because they just swap out, but their final Pokemon is Cradily, and this is looking perfect for me. Of course, I do have to be wary of a potential catch, but I can just soak up this damage so comfortably. They're going to go for Rock Tombs. I don't really care. I've still got a Fletchinder in the back, so eventually when my switch clock does come up, when I get to 100 energy, I will just swap out. I will clear the debuff, and then we can unload 2 Gyro Balls. So Rock Tomb going to debuff me once again. We swap out. We clear the debuff there. I wait one turn just to make sure the opponent doesn't make a catch onto for Alligator, and then again, I am going to wait one turn here just to ensure they don't, and we go straight for Gyro Ball number 2. Gyro Ball is going to connect. It gets the one shot. One more Psycho Cut will eventually take out for Alligator, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent there into next battle. I'm going to see a Dusknoir in the lead, so not a great matchup for me because I don't have any fast move pressure, but I am going to maybe shield this first move. Yep, going to shield the first move as they fire off a Shadow Punch. And then here, because they did throw straight away, I can outpace them to the next move. However, don't really want to throw because they are so low. So instead, I'm going to swap into Barbarical and catch a Shadow Punch here. Of course, if the opponent predicted that swap out, maybe they could have committed to a Dynamic Punch, but we get a Fury Cutter farm down anyways. And now they're going to come in with an Acid Cradily. Now, honestly, this matchup isn't really that bad. We resist the fast move damage, Fury Cutters and Cross Chops hit for super effective, and I'm actually able to force a CMP tie. Cross Chop is going to grab a shield there, and at this point, I will let Barbarical go down. Rock Tomb gets the KO, but that's fine with me. We can come in with the Aegislash, and again, just going to look to overfarm massively in this situation. The opponent fires off the Rock Tomb. Don't really care. The opponent's still staying in here, looking to debuff my attack stat once again. Still absolutely fine with me. The opponent is eventually going to swap into a Azumarill, but that's just fine. I'm going to swap out, clear the debuff, come in with the Fletchinder, and going for these Flies. Fly does decent damage in this matchup. We can fire off a second Fly, and Fly is certainly going to put them into range where a single charge move will get the KO. Now, here's where I make a mistake. I have back-to-back charge moves here, but what I'm going to do, which is very strange for me, is I'm going to fire off the Gyro Ball. I then didn't throw straight away just in case they tried to make a catch onto the Cradily, but now I've shielded. I'm in shield form. I didn't need to throw straight away. I super comfortably tank an Ice Beam, even a Hydro Pump from that range. So here, I do nearly throw this game away, but I will still be able to outpace them to the next charge move, so it doesn't matter in the end. But obviously, if I knew the form mechanic and how it actually worked there, I would have played that out differently. But either way, GG's to that trainer. Now into next battle, we're going to see Dedenne in the lead. This is probably the worst thing for me, just because not only is it a bad lead, it's a matchup I can't swap out of, and also they're just going to boost up their defense. But because I fire off that Fly straight away, I am actually able to connect there. We're going to shield the Parabolic Charge. I swap into Barbarical, and I will just narrowly live a Parabolic Charge and the fast move pressure to reach a last second Cross Chop. Now, Cross Chop also isn't going to do much damage there, but it does at least grab a shield back from the opponent. I don't know how that really helps me, but anyways, going to wait out the switch clock. I'm going to come in with the Aegislash, and the opponent is actually going to throw straight away. So at this point, Parabolic Charge, going to boost up the defense. Once again, they swap into Shadow for Alligator, and I do still have a shield. However, I'm not going to bother shielding. They actually go for Crunch there, which is certainly not ideal. And again, up against for Alligator, even though this is the Shadow version this time around, Fly doesn't really put them into farm down range, so I'm actually going to go for a flame charge here, hoping to boost up my attack stat, of course. What the hell? Flame charge is going to grab the final shield. I'm going to shield here, but I believe they do have back-to-back charge moves already, so it doesn't really help me. And again, I cannot farm them down with the Aegislash, so this is going to be game over. I'm going to be forced to throw a charge move, but in doing so, I'm now going to be stuck in the blade form, and there's just nothing I can do up against the Dene. So of course, Gyro Ball from like 5 HP will get the KO, but they can just Thunder Shock, farm down the Aegislash, and unfortunately I do lose that game. But GG's to opponent there. Into the next battle, we're going to see a Shadow Talonflame in the lead. Now, I had been holding off building a Fletchinder until I had a good Shadow version to build. However, I just didn't catch one, and I've not been able to go out at all recently because I recently sprained my ankle a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, I don't think I'm going to find a decent Fletchinder just from my balloons at home, so I just pulled the trigger. We built the regular version. It's got okay-ish bulk. It is still slightly more attack weighted than the regular Talonflame, but either way, at this point, I'm going to shield here as the opponent has very little fast pressure with those acids. I can flip switch advantage. I tried to throw on CMP, I believe, both times there, and both times the opponent does look to overfarm, but they do allow the move to go through. Now here, I don't have access to Stone Edge, but does the opponent know that? We go for cross shop, and they are going to shield, and now because they go for the extra incinerate, I can outpace them, fire off the fly doesn't quite get the KO. I actually don't have a clue how much HP they've got there because they swapped out immediately, so we don't get to see. So that could be problematic for me. If they've got anything other than a 0 or like a 1 HP, then that could be quite difficult for me, but either way, we're going to fire off back-to-back flies here. They do get a full farm down, but again, Aegislash can just soak up the damage super comfortably. The opponent is actually on a Hydro Pump, however, and that does, I mean, it doesn't do that much damage, to be honest, but it is going to add up over time. Again, I don't know how much HP that Talonflame has, so Hydro Pump, again, going to do decent damage there. I'm going to fire off the Gyro Ball. I realize I can throw one fast move and then swap out anyways if they do try and fast move farming down, but either way, Gyro Ball gets the KO, and I believe they're on 1 HP anyways as we get the farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent there. Into the next battle, going to see a Shadows Wireless in the lead. So I'm actually going to stay in this matchup. Going to fire off the charge move straight away. Fly, going to grab a shield advantage, and now I swap into Barbarical. Of course, I'm going to shield this, and the opponent is going to full send a Dark Pulse, so good shield there. Then swap into Shadow Empoleon, so interesting. So far, double weak to the fighting typing. We go for cross shot, dealing big damage there. But again, I don't know if I quite put them into farm down range. I guess we're about to find out. Fury Cutters, they are non-stab, they are resisted. We won't get the farm down, which is unfortunate. But cross chop is going to grab the final shield. So at this point, I'm happy to no shield here. Hydro Cannon, gonna get the KO. I'm gonna come back in with the Fletchinder, go for that Ember farm down, and the opponent's gonna come in with the Shadows Wireless. Now I'm hoping Fly gets the KO from this range, and if it doesn't, I will be swapping straight away into Aegislash. I'm able to catch a triple resisted non-stab body slam, but they've got Shadow Charizard in the back. One of the only Pokemon that I believe will be able to one-shot us here with a Blast Burn. Blast Burn does take us out because I don't have the best IVs on the Aegislash, and they can reach an Air Cutter as well. Air Cutter doesn't quite get the KO, but they can just Ember, farm me down, and unfortunately I do lose that game. But GG's top opponent there into the next battle. I can see Wigglytuff in the lead, so a good matchup for me in the lead. And here I'm actually going to go for the Flame Charge because I will need 2 charge moves to get the KO, and it's likely that they debuff me anyways. But no, never mind. They swap into Guzzlord, so I'm going to come in with Barbarical. I'm going to shield just in case they do full send a Dragon Claw. It is just the Brutal Swing, which means I can very comfortably tank the next one. So I'm going to no shield this, and then I can actually outpace them to back-to-back Cross Chops. I'm also hoping at this point Cross Chop will put them into Fury Cutter farm down range before they get to the next move, and that is the case. The opponent comes back in with the Wigglytuff, so I'm actually going to go for the Grass Knot here. Don't expect a shield. The opponent doesn't shield, and their final Pokemon is a Shadow for Alligator. So at this point, we're going to go for the Cross Chop. Cross Chop, going to grab a shield. We swap back into our Fletchinder, and we can also reach a Fly. Fly, going to be shielded by the opponent, but because we know now that we lose CMP, I'm not going to bother shielding here, as they will just reach another charge move. So now we're going to come back in with our Aegislash here. We should be fine. We have to be wary of a potential catch from the opponent, but as long as I'm able to throw a charge move into Feraligatr, I should be able to win this game. Now they go for a crunch, debuffs on defense, but they swap back into Wigglytuff. I do not need to shield this. They go for Icy Wind. I'm actually going to swap out just to get off a few Fury Cutters to make that farm down slightly easier, as Wigglytuff has a ton of HP. That farm down would have been agonizing, but now we can go straight for Shadow Ball, and of course, Shadow Ball into Feraligatr gets that one shot, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into next battle. You're going to see Altaria in the lead once again. So, once again, this is not the best matchup for me. And as well, I do expect maybe like an Empoleon or a Kanto Marowak, or maybe even both of them in the back line here. So, going to fire off the fly, then swap into Barbaracle, hoping to bait out the Mud Slapper, but they actually come in with a Primate. Now, I'm going to fire off the Cross Chop. Cross Chop is going to grab a shield advantage, which is quite nice for me. They can go for the Rage Fist here. Rage Fist is unfortunately not going to allow me to reach a Grass Knot, so I have to settle for another Cross Chop, but Cross Chop, they realize they can tank that, and it doesn't quite put them into farm down range either. I was hoping I could shield once and go for a full Ember farm down, but we can see that's just barely not going to happen, so I do settle for the fly. Of course, they were double boosted at this point, so I didn't want to tank a Rage Fist. I'm going to swap out. I'm not able to catch a charge move, and they do have that Kanto Marowak in the back. But unfortunately, Barbaracle was not able to bait it out here. So, of course, they fire off the Bone Club. Does quite a lot of damage there. And again, it's a non-shadow, so unfortunately, Gyro Ball probably does not get the KO here. I expected to grab a shield anyways, but the opponent is going to let that go through. I should have just full sent the Shadow Ball, realizing I'm not going to get to back-to-back charge moves there. So that is my mistake. At this point, I have to call a bait. It's a Rock Side, and so unfortunately that is game over. But GG's top home there into the next battle. We're going to see Fletchinder into Galarian Moltres. So we're going to stay in this matchup. We will outpace them to that first charge move. They actually swap into a rollout Licky Licky. Kind of slow to swap out there, but we do eventually come in with Barbaracle. I'm actually going to shield this just in case it is an Earthquake. It ends up being a Shadow Ball, so quite unlikely that they've got Shadow Ball and Earthquake. So at this point, going to fire off the Cross Chop. Cross Chop going to be no shielded. Wasn't entirely sure if the next Cross Chop, would get the KO, so I no shield, and we overfarm, and they actually went for a Body Slam bait, so that's fine with me. Cross Chop will get the KO here. They come back in with that Moltres. Of course, I'm not revealed the other charge move, so we go for another Cross Chop. Cross Chop grabs a shield from the opponent. I'm going to look to overfarm even more. Fire off the Cross Chop. At this point, they probably should know this isn't a Stone Edge, but they end up shielding anyways. So now I come in with the Fletchinder. I fire off the Fly. Fly is going to connect, but they make a very nice catch there, catching the next Fly onto Clodsire. But we're still in this game. Of course, at this point, I'm going to fire off another Fly. Stone Edge or even a Sludge Bomb would get the KO from this range. So I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to bank a charge move and then swap into my Aegislash. So we swap out there. Of course, we've seen already Earthquake does about half our remaining HP, which is fine with me. And then unless they're on payback, they can't KO me here with a resisted flying type move, but they do have payback there. So unfortunately, that does get the knockout. However, I'm still in a great position. We come back in. I'm going to go and overfarm just by one there. Fire off the Fly. I've still got enough HP to live the Poison Sting damage, and I can now easily outpace them to the next Fly. And from this range, Fletchinder will be taking out the Clodsire, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's top home there into the final battle of this video, leading into a Cradily. So, of course, not an ideal matchup for me, but they're on Bullet Seed. And I'm actually going to swap out, catch a Rock Tomb onto my Barbaracle. Rock Tomb, of course, going to debuff me, but it doesn't do anywhere near as much damage as a potential Grass Knot. The opponent comes in with a Greninja. That's fine with me. I'm going to shield the first move as they fire off a Night Slash, and now look to overfarm and fire off a Cross Chop. Cross Chop, even with the debuff, gets the KO there, but they come in with a Shadow Talonflame. Now, of course, we don't have Stone Edge, but they don't know that, so potentially looking to grab a shield here, but they call the bait. That is a huge call on the opponent's end, but we're going to go for a Fly. Fly, going to grab a shield from the opponent. They swap back into Cradily, and of course, remember, they're on Bullet Seed, so their fast moves not really dealing that much damage here. So we fire off the Fly. I'm now going to look to bank a charge move, and then shield here, and then swap back into my Aegislash. Well, unfortunately, I will have to overfarm. Gonna farm up to back-to-back moves here. Fire off the Fly. Fly is actually gonna be no-shielded. Smart play on the opponent's end. I don't know why I didn't go for 2 Embers here. That is just a mistake on my end. But now we can swap, and the opponent, unfortunately for them, even though this is a really positive matchup in terms of typing, they have to go for Flame Charge, and they cannot commit to a farm down. They probably should have overfarmed more than they did. They only overfarmed by 1, which means now we can very comfortably outpace them to the next charge view. Of course, Barbarical, kind of useless, even though I do resist the fast move damage, but Fletchinder gonna outpace them to the Fly, and of course, Fly gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.